Hello everybody, I got Viceroy set up for a two-player game. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it. I've already given everybody their starting gem pile for the characters, or for each player. This player over here is missing one red, one green. This player over here is missing one green, one blue. Each player has their two starting characters, their three starting law cards, and I have the auction pile set up for both of our players. We're just going to go ahead and get right into things and show you exactly how quick Viceroy plays. The first thing each player needs to do is they need to place their very first character to start the pyramid. The first player is going to play the general, and the other player is going to play the sniper. Now remember, when we play our characters, we get the rewards from them immediately. Since this player played the general, they're going to get one free card, and they can pick it, remember, from the small stack or from the law stack. We actually have some pretty good law cards in our hand right now, so we're going to take one of the character cards that's going to be added to our hand. That's our reward for playing this character very first. This player is going to play the sniper, which is going to give them 3 victory points at the start of the game, starting them off with already towards victory points. Now that each player has played their starting character, each player is going to go ahead and decide to auction and decide which characters they want to auction for to start the very first round. Each player looks at the cards that they have in their hand and decides which cards they want to auction for based on what they want to do at the beginning of the game. Now, in the beginning of the game, it's always great to get as many gemstones as you can because, like I said, as the game goes on, things start getting very expensive and gemstones become a very finite resource. So this player over here, looking at the cards in their hand and realizing that they don't have any way to get extra gemstones quickly, they're looking at adding the miner edit to their hand because at level 1 will be 3 free resources for them. While this player over here already has cards in their hand that's going to give them gemstones, so they're not too worried about it. And they're liking the thought about getting this armor on the second level, which is going to give them infinite blue gemstone resources for the rest of the game, usable once per turn. So each player uses their logic, decides what they're going to go ahead and auction. They put their hands in, reveal, and each player, they didn't decide beforehand, but just to show you the thought process, this player is going to take the red card and add it to their hand. And this player is going to take the yellow card and add it to their hand. Now, I didn't get to this when I was giving the tutorial, but players during the auction phase are free to do as much table talk as they like, whether they want to bluff, liar, or cajole the other players as much as they want. So players can say stuff, well, I'm thinking about playing red, and then not play for red or anything they want. That is very legal and very much allowed. And if you have the right group of players, that can make the game a little bit more fun just with the table talk, especially if you have players who are very, very good at deception. After the auction is finished, we raise the character cards up who were not auctioned by the players. Then we just simply refill the auction pile, and then each player gets to decide which card they want to play for the development phase. And since the auction pile is refilled, we can move on to the development phase right now. This player over here actually has quite a few good cards to play, and they have a plan. Remember, they want to try to get this character card, the armor, on the second level, so they get a blue infinity gem, which is a permanent resource they can use for the rest of the game. Plus, we also have some very good law cards that we want to put into play, but we don't want to put them in play too soon, especially this card, which is going to give us victory points in the game for every card that is around it. So we definitely want to try to get this card on the second level, so we know this isn't the card we want to play. These other cards right here are very good too, but we don't quite want them in play yet either. So we need to decide between these two cards right here, which one we want to play that's going to go on the first level of our pyramid. Because again, we know we want him on our second level. So using this logic, we need to figure out which one of these guys would be better to place on the first level. If we place the helmsman on the first level, he's going to cost us 1 gem, but he's going to give us 3 resources. If we place the mentor on the first level, he's going to cost us a green gem and just give us 3 victory points. Well, it seems pretty obvious which one we want to play on the first level. So this player is going to play the helmsman face down, so the other player has no idea what he's going to be playing, and that's going to be the decision for this player's card for the start of the development phase. Now, the other player also has a lot of very good cards that are going to cause them to have a lot of decisions that they don't want to make. We have this card right here, which is going to be better the higher up it is in the pyramid, because we're going to get 2 victory points for each card that happens to be adjacent to it. So if we have it on the first level, we know there's some cards that won't be adjacent to it, stripping us of victory points, so we definitely don't want to play that card yet. This card right here is going to give us more victory points the higher it is up in the pyramid, so again, not a card we want to play yet. This law card right here will cost us nothing to play since it's a law card, and we can get a scroll, we can get a gear, or something we really need is we can get 4 gems of any color we like. Or we can play the herbalist, which will give us 3 victory points, or finally we can play the miner, who will also give us 3 victory points, but cost us a yellow gemstone to get into play. So, looking at everything we got, we know we don't want to play this character right here because we know we need gemstones. So we basically have a decision between the Commonwealth League, which we can play for 4 gemstones, or we can play the minor for 3 gemstones, but it's going to cost us 1 gemstone to get the minor into play. And we see that he can be much, much better higher up in the pyramid. So using this thought process, we're going to decide not to play the minor. And we're going to play this card. Again, it's played face down, so the other player has no idea exactly which card we're playing. And now that all of our players have placed cards on the table face down, each player gets to reveal their cards and resolve whatever they do. So starting with player number 1, they're going to reveal their card, and unfortunately they can't place this card in any way that's going to allow them to build a solid gemstone, which is unfortunate, but they are going to play this card for the resources, which is definitely something they need. They have to pay the cost for playing it, which is going to be the first level, which is going to be 1 red gemstone to play the helmsman, which is going to be returned to the gemstone pile. And then player number 2 is playing a law card, which does not cost them anything. And they want to definitely play it if they can in a way that's going to allow them to make solid gemstones. So they're going to place it right here next to their sniper. So they work on making a solid yellow gemstone. And they decide to take either 1 scroll, 1 gear, or 4 gemstones. We're definitely going to take the gemstones, especially since we have no red at this time at all. And that's a resource we definitely need. We're definitely going to need green since we only have 1 left. And we're going to look at our hand and see what kind of cost we have in our hand. And we're going to decide to take an additional yellow because we know we're going to be needing yellow very, very quickly. That's the rewards for player number 2. Player number 1 needs to decide exactly what rewards they're going to take. They're going to get 3 gemstones for placing the helmsman. And knowing the next card we want to play is going to cost us a blue and a green resource, we definitely want to take a blue and take a green gemstone. And then we have 1 gemstone color left over, which we need to decide what we want to play. We're going to go ahead and take red because we also are thinking we want to auction over here possibly for the champion, or we need to decide if that's really what we want to do. So the first player is going to take their resources, and that's going to end the very first step of the development phase. Now remember, the development phase is 3 steps. Each player gets a chance to play cards up to 3 times. So now each of our players needs to decide exactly which cards they want to play, and then we're going to move on and reveal those cards. After every player has placed their card on the table face down, each player needs to reveal their cards and place their cards on the pyramid however they want and get the rewards for placing them and also pay the cost if necessary. So player 1 needs to pay for their armor, which is going to be 1 blue and 1 green gemstone. We discard those back to the reserve, and we're going to get a bonus for playing him. We're going to get an Infinity Stone, which comes from the reserves. Now, an Infinity Stone is very, very nice because what it allows us to do is once per development phase, not all 3 turns, because remember each development phase is 3 turns, but once per development phase, we can use this Infinity Stone for the rest of the game to cover 1 blue resource cost. Again, I want to emphasize it's only once per development phase, not once per 3 card plays, only once per development phase. We get 1 free blue gemstone to use to pay for other card costs. And then over here, since we made a solid yellow gemstone by playing these cards, we're going to gain 1 solid yellow gemstone for our resources. Player number 2 is starting to look really good on resources, and that's the end of phase, or second part of the development phase. Now each player gets a chance to play a 3rd card if they like. Both of our players are indeed going to decide to play 1 more card each. They're going to play their cards face down on the table. Once both the players have played their cards, the cards are going to be revealed. And then the players are going to add the cards to their pyramid, depending on where they want those cards as part of their pyramid. They have to pay the cost. So player number 1 is playing on a level 1, so it's going to cost 1 green gemstone, which is instantly going to give them 3 victory points. That's going to go towards the final score for the end of the game. And then player number 2 played the minor on the first level, which is going to cost them 1 yellow resource. But in exchange, they get to get 3 resources back. And looking at the resources they have, they're going to take 1 blue, 1 red, and they're going to take 1 green, which means they effectively now have 3 resources of every single color in the reserve. So they're looking pretty good for the auctioning and also for playing cards on future rounds. That's all 3 card plays for the development phase. The development phase is over. We now get to start turn number 2 back at the auction phase. Each player decides what they're going to auction, places their fists in the center of the table. Each player reveals. Player number 2 reveals a green. Player number 1 reveals a red. So player number 1 is going to take the card that's underneath the red gem. Player number 2 is going to decide which one of these 2 cards they want underneath the green gem. Do they want the Admiral or do they want the Prince? Well, their strategy is they're wanting the Prince because they want to place the Prince right here. So they're going to take the Prince card. Once these auction gems have been used up, they're put back in the resource pile. All the cards on the top of the auction are now removed from the game. Nobody can get them anymore. The cards on the bottom level move up. And then we simply just refill the auction pile all over again for the cards that will be available for the third round, or the next third turn for the auction. And now we move to the development phase. Each player just needs to look at their hand for the start of the development phase. They pick a card they're going to play, place their cards face down. Once each player has their cards in play, simply reveal and place those cards as part of our pyramids wherever we want them to go, and we're going to get the rewards for doing so. Starting with player number 1, the first thing we need to do is pay the cost. Now normally it costs a blue and a red gemstone to play the champion on the second level. Luckily we have an infinity gem, so we're going to go ahead and use that now to cover the blue cost. So the only thing we need to do is cover the red cost, which is going to give us a reward of 5 gems plus a blue gem because we completed a solid colored gem, which goes to our resource pile. So now we get to pick 5 gems on top of that. And since all we have is 2 blue and 1 yellow, we're going to pick 2 red, 1 yellow, and 2 green, which is a total of 5 resources we're going to add back behind our screen, which helps us because resources were running pretty darn tight for player number 1. Player number 2 has to pay 2 blues for playing the prince on the second level, which we can cover pretty easily, so we're not too worried about that. And our reward for playing him prince on the second level is we get to get 5 gemstones back of any color. 2 of those gemstones we're going to choose is blue, just so we have a nice even round amount of resources, and we get 3 more resources. We need to look at exactly what we want an auction for and decide what kind of resources we want before we decide on what kind of resources we still want. Now player 2 is looking at the cards that are available in the auction. We're eyeballing both blue and yellow because both those look like fantastic cards that we can go for, character cards to add to our pyramid. So we get 3 more resources still, and we're going to take a blue and a yellow because we know we're going to be auctioning at least one of those depending on how things turn out the next auction phase. And then we're going to look at also grabbing 1 red. And that's all the rewards we get for playing the prince. Now we've taken care of all the rewards. Now we get to see if players want to play a second card for their development phase. Each player definitely knows what cards they still want to play for the development phase, so they're each going to place their cards face down the table. They've decided what cards they're going to play. They're going to go ahead and reveal their cards and add their cards to the pyramids and get whatever reward that will give them. We're going to make a solid color, so player number 1 gets a green gem. Player number 2 is going to place the herbalist on the first level, which is going to cost them 1 red gem to play, but they're also going to get 3 victory points towards the end of the game for playing the herbalist on the first level. That's the end of the second development phase for all of our players. Now they need to decide if they want to do a third development phase, and both of our players are going to decline. So now we move back to turn 3, auction. Each player decides exactly what they're going to auction, puts their fists in, and they go ahead and reveal their auctions. Again, no match. Player number 1 is going for green. They're going to take the fencer and add the fencer to their hand. Player number 2 auction blue, and they have a choice between the guard or the sentry. They're going to take the sentry. And that's going to end the auction for both of our players. We simply just need to refresh the auction. These 2 guys disappear. These 2 guys move up. And then we simply just reveal 4 new cards for the auction. And we're now back on the development phase for both of our players. Each player figures out exactly which cards they're going to play, and as usual, plays them face down. After that, all the cards are revealed and players place them on their pyramids, making sure to pay their costs and getting any rewards they may get for that. Since player number 2 played the sentry, it's going to cost them 2 red, and it's also going to cost them a green. But since they made a solid blue circle or gemstone, they're going to gain a blue gemstone for their efforts. And not only that, they're going to get a gear because this guy is played on the third level of their pyramid, and now all they need is a shield and a scroll for 12 victory points at the end of the game for 1 match set. Player number 1 is going to place the fencer, playing the fencer down on the first level, which is going to cost them 1 yellow gemstone to do so. But they're going to get 3 gemstones back in return, so they're going to take that 1 gemstone back. They're going to take a second yellow gemstone, and then they're going to take a blue gemstone, and that's the reward, and that's the first development phase for both of our players. Neither one of our players wishes to play any more cards for the development phase, so that ends the development phase. We go back on to the auction phase, where each player is going to go ahead and auction, reveal what they're auctioning, and they're going to take the cards they want. Player number 2 bid a red gemstone, and they're going to take one of the red cards, taking the paladin into their hand. Player number 1 bid a yellow gemstone, so they have a choice. They can either take the flag bearer or they can take the saboteur, but they're going to take the saboteur because they have a very nice plan for using the saboteur, which is to give them a lot of resources very quickly. Now all we need to do, of course, is just refresh the auction offer for all the characters the players can auction for, reveal all 4 brand new characters for the players to auction for, and also for the players to start planning for, and now we move back on to the development phase for both of our players. Each player places a card face down again, and then goes ahead and reveals those cards. Player number 1 is going to place a Saboteur on level number 2, which is going to cost them a red and a blue. And we have that blue Infinity Stone, so we're going to go ahead and use it, so it's only going to cost us 1 red gemstone to play the Saboteur on level 2. Our rewards are, we're going to get a sword. Now remember, swords are great. If you have more swords at the end of the game and your opponent doesn't have any shields, they're going to lose victory points for every sword you have that they can't counter with a shield. So it's a great way to slow down your opponents, and swords those go behind your screen, which is really, really nice. So the other players don't exactly know how many swords you have. And since we play the Saboteur on level 2, we also get to get 3 resources. And seeing that we're running a little bit shy on red gemstones and we're running a little shy on yellow gemstones, we're going to go ahead and grab 2 red, and then we're going to go ahead and grab 1 yellow as our rewards. Now for the player number 2, we're going to play the Paladin on level 2, which is going to cost us a green, and it's also going to cost us a blue gemstone. Our reward is going to be 1 sword, so we hurt our opponent also if they don't happen to get any shields. Again, the sword goes behind our screen. Then we're going to get 2 victory points, and we're also going to get 2 gemstones of any color we like. Since all we got is blue and yellow left, we're going to go ahead and grab a red and a green, so we're not completely without every single resource. That's the end of the first development phase for both of our players. Now they need to decide if they want to play a second development card. Player number 2 doesn't, but player 1 definitely does, and they have a very nice law card that they're going to go ahead and play. Player number 1 is going to play the law card called Reassignment. Now Reassignment allows you to place the Reassignment law card anywhere you want in your pyramid, and you're replacing the card, and the nice thing is you get to take that card back in your hand, which means we get to play the Saboteur on a future round to get its benefits all over again. And we don't have to pay its cost because it's going to be played like a law card, as the reassignment card says. So we've got another card out. We've made a red gemstone to help us greatly. And when we get that Saboteur out again, we're going to get its benefits. So everything's looking really good for that card play for player number 1. Unfortunately, the law card says we can't play it again to a future turn, but that's okay. We're going to be able to play it free as a law card, so that's pretty darn fine for us. And now we get to move on to the auction phase, because now we're going to pass, and the other players already passed, so they can't change their mind. We're now back to an auction phase. Each player goes ahead and does the auction again and goes ahead and reveals, and this time both players seem to want the same color of cards. So normally both these gems will be discarded and both the players have to auction all over again, except for the fact that player 2 wants the Berserker and player 1 wants the Pathfinder, and since they both are amiable about what cards they exactly want, the auction is not wasted, and each player gets to take the cards they want quite happily. And again, we're going to refresh the auction pile. And then after we refresh the auction pile, each player needs to decide exactly which cards they're going to play, again, for the development phase. Each player places their cards face down, then they go ahead and reveal their card. Now the Saboteur is free for player number 1 to play, because remember, the law card that they played previously says they can play this again as a law card, which means it's no cost. They're going to add to level 3 of the pyramid, which is going to give them a couple of things. First, they're going to get a green gem for making a solid green gem, which is always very nice. And since they're playing on level 3, they're also going to gain a scroll. Now, scrolls aren't worth any points at all at the end of the game unless you happen to get the bonuses that give scrolls victory points. So now we need to concentrate on getting a card out that's going to give us victory points for scrolls we get into play. And remember, we just bought the Pathfinder card, so that obviously was part of our plan. Player number 2 played the Berserker on level 3, which is going to give him a blue gemstone, but first they got to pay the cost, which is going to be 2 yellow and 1 blue, which is the cost of playing the Berserker on level 3. Since they made a solid blue gemstone, they're going to get the blue gemstone back, which is kind of nice. They're also going to gain 1 sword. So we see the strategy for player number 2 is make player number 1 lose victory points, and we're also going to gain 4 victory points for playing the Berserker on level 3 of our pyramid. That's the first development phase. Now each player gets to decide if they want to play in more development cards, and we know player 1 definitely does. Each player places their cards on the table and reveals their cards. Player number 1 is going to place the Pathfinder on the very top level of the pyramid, which is going to cost them 1 red, 1 yellow, 1 green, and finally 1 blue gemstone. But the reward is they're going to get a scroll that says any scrolls they get for the rest of the game are worth 5 victory points each, which means this scroll right here is already worth 5 victory points, which is quite a few points in Viceroy. So player 1 is very happy with their decision. Player number 2 places this lock card on level 4 of the pyramid. Remember, lock cards can be on any 1, 2, 3, or 4 levels. A lock card can never be on the 5th level, and our reward for placing this lock card here is 12 victory points for player number 2. Each player is done with their development phase. We're now back onto the auction phase, and our players have some really tough decisions because we all know that each player is going to be placing whichever card they get next on level 1 of the pyramid, because that's the only place they can place it, because remember, a pyramid has to be built properly. You can't build it off center. So each player is looking at the cards out there and seeing which is the best level 1 card, and they're going to figure out which they want to auction for by looking at that. We're going to see that the Baron is at level 1, is going to give a green infinity gem, making him a really hotly contested card for both of our players. We're going to see that the Wanderer is going to give a scroll, which is worth 5 victory points for player number 1 for every single scroll, which may be a good card for player number 1 to go after. We're going to have free resources. We're going to have plus 2 victory points for every scroll. So if player number 1 took that, that means every scroll will be worth 7 victory points at the end of the game. So we have a lot of decisions for our players on exactly which cards they want to go for to continue building their pyramids. This is going to continue for a total of 12 rounds until players have completely built their pyramids, and everybody's going to add up their scores. Players are going to get victory points for having single color gemstones in the pyramid based on what level of the pyramid that gemstone is on. So this will be worth 3 victory points, 3 victory points, 3 victory points, 3 victory points, 2 victory points here. Players also get victory points for infinite gemstones. Players are going to get victory points for the lock cards. Players are going to get victory points for the victory point tokens they happen to have. Players can get victory points for scrolls if they happen to get the scroll bonuses. Players can get victory points for complete sets of scroll, shield, and also for the gear. And then finally, players can get victory points for attack tokens versus other players, depending on if they happen to have any shields. Players are then going to add up all their victory points based on all those victory point conditions, and whoever has the most victory points is the grand winner of Viceroy, the card game. I think this has been enough gameplay for you to see exactly what the game looks like. I'm going to clean everything up and give you my final thoughts on Viceroy, the card game.